You smell like mine. The words rumbled against Luna Blackwood's throat, each syllable vibrating through her skin as silver eyes held her captive. The ancient oak's bark bit into her back, but she couldn't move, wouldn't move, not with 200 pounds of dangerous alpha male pressed against her, his scent flooding her senses like whiskey and wildfire. This wasn't how her first day as pack liaison was supposed to end. 6 hours earlier, Luna had stood at the edge of the neutral territory, smoothing her hands down the conservative black dress her father had chosen for the annual Alpha Summit. The fabric felt like a straitjacket, but then again, everything about her life felt that way lately. Remember, Luna, her father's voice echoed in her memory, weathered and tired in a way that made her chest ache. We need this alliance with Alpha Reed. Our pack won't survive another winter without it. She nodded then, swallowed her protests, and promised to be the perfect diplomat. The perfect daughter. The perfect political pawn. Now, as she walked through the grand reception hall of the Summit Lodge, she wondered if perfect was worth the price of her soul. The lodge buzzed with conversation, dozens of alphas, betas, and pack representatives from across the continent gathering for 3 days of negotiations, territory disputes, and political maneuvering. Luna recognized most of the faces from her briefings, but she kept her distance from the cluster of alphas near the bar. Particularly from Alpha Marcus Reed, whose calculating gaze had been following her since she'd arrived. She was 24 years old, and her future had already been decided without her input. In 3 days, when the summit ended, she'd return home to an engagement announcement. A month after that, she'd be Marcus Reed's Luna, cementing an alliance that would save her father's weakening pack. The thought made her stomach churn. Miss Blackwood? A young beta appeared at her elbow. Alpha Reed requests your presence for the evening negotiations. Luna forced a smile. Of course. I'll be right there. But instead of heading toward the conference room, she slipped through the lodge's back doors and into the cool mountain air. Just 5 minutes. She needed 5 minutes to breathe, to remember who she was beneath all the expectations and obligations. The forest called to her wolf, and she found herself walking deeper into the trees despite the warnings about staying within the lodge boundaries. The scent of pine and earth calmed her racing heart, and for the first time all day, she felt like she could think clearly. That's when she heard it, a low whine of pain that made her wolf pace restlessly beneath her skin. Luna followed the sound deeper into the trees, her enhanced hearing picking up the subtle snap of branches and rustle of leaves. She should have turned back. Should have remembered the strict rules about the restricted forest that bordered the neutral territory. Should have recalled the stories her father used to tell her about the creatures that lived in the darkness between the trees. Instead, she pushed through a thicket of brambles and stepped into a moonlit clearing. The massive black wolf lay on its side near a fallen log, silver-tipped fur matted with blood. Even wounded, even in obvious pain, he was the most magnificent creature she'd ever seen. Power radiated from him in waves that made her knees weak and her wolf whimper in recognition. Then she caught his scent, and her blood turned to ice. Kieran Nightshade. The rogue alpha whose pack had been banished 15 years ago for practicing blood magic. The wolf her father had warned her about since childhood, dangerous, unpredictable, and absolutely forbidden. She should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to back away slowly and pretend she'd never seen him. But as she took a step backward, his silver eyes snapped open and locked on hers, and she saw something that stopped her cold. Pain. Not just physical, but the kind of soul-deep agony that came from years of exile and betrayal. The sound of voices carried through the trees, hunters, from the smell of silver and gun oil that drifted on the wind. They were close, too close, and growing closer. Without thinking, Luna stripped off her dress and shifted, her bones popping and reforming as her sleek gray wolf emerged. She grabbed Kieran's scruff in her teeth and pulled, every muscle in her body straining to drag his much larger form toward the thick underbrush. He was too heavy, and she was too small, but somehow she managed to get him behind a massive fallen tree just as the hunters crashed into the clearing, their flashlight beams sweeping across the space where he'd been lying moments before. I swear I saw something, one of them muttered. Big black wolf, had to be at least 200 pounds. Blood trail ends here, another replied. Whatever it was, it's gone now. Luna pressed herself against Kieran's side, hardly daring to breathe as the hunters searched the clearing for another 10 minutes before finally moving on. Only when their voices faded completely did she shift back to human form, suddenly very aware that she was naked and alone in the forest with the most dangerous alpha in werewolf history. Kieran's wolf form shimmered and dissolved, leaving behind a man who was even more intimidating than his wolf. Tall and broad-shouldered, with black hair that fell across his forehead and silver eyes that seemed to see straight through her. The wound on his side was healing already, but slowly, and she could see the exhaustion in the tight lines around his eyes. Why? His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in days. Luna grabbed her dress and held it against her chest, acutely aware of how vulnerable she was. You were hurt. I'm Kieran Nightshade. He said it like a warning, like she should be running screaming into the night. I know who you are. His eyes narrowed. Then you know helping me was the stupidest thing you could possibly do. Probably. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze despite the way it made her pulse race. But I couldn't just leave you there to die. Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe, or confusion. Like kindness was so foreign to him that he didn't know how to process it. What's your name? He asked. Luna. Luna Blackwood. The change in him was immediate. His entire body went rigid, and when he looked at her again, there was something predatory in his silver gaze. Blackwood. As in Alpha Thomas Blackwood? He's my father. Kieran laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Of course he is. The universe has a sick sense of humor. Before Luna could ask what he meant, he was moving, faster than she could track, faster than should have been possible for someone who'd been bleeding out moments before. Her back hit the oak tree, and suddenly he was there, surrounding her, his hands braced on either side of her head as his body caged her in. Do you know what your father did to my pack? His voice was barely more than a whisper, but it carried the weight of 15 years of anger and betrayal. Luna's heart hammered against her ribs. I know what you did. The blood magic. The innocent wolves who died. Innocent wolves. He leaned closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. Is that what he told you? It's what everyone knows. Everyone knows lies. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. Your father framed my pack because we discovered what he was really doing with the territory disputes. We were banished for crimes we never committed, while the real monsters got to keep their crowns. Luna wanted to argue, wanted to defend her father, but something in Kieran's eyes made the words die in her throat. There was truth there, painful and raw and absolutely devastating. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. Because, his other hand came up to frame her face, and suddenly the air between them crackled with electricity. Because you saved me. Because you smell like pine trees and moonlight and everything I thought I'd lost. Because when I touched you back there. He didn't need to finish. Luna felt it too, the invisible thread that had snapped into place the moment their skin connected. A bond that was supposed to be impossible, forbidden by every law of their kind. Mates. No. The word escaped her lips as barely more than a breath. This can't be happening. But it is. His forehead touched hers, and she could feel his heartbeat through the thin space between their bodies. The bond has been made, Luna. There's no running from what we are. I'm promised to another. The words tasted like ashes on her tongue. Alpha Marcus Reed. The ceremony is in a month. Something dark and possessive flashed in Kieran's eyes. Over my dead body. You don't understand. My pack needs this alliance. Without it, your father's pack falls. Kieran's smile was sharp and dangerous. Good. Maybe it's time for the truth to come out. Kieran. But he was already stepping back, the heat of his body disappearing so suddenly that she felt cold all over. I'll be in touch, Luna Blackwood. And when I am, you're going to have to choose, your father's lies or the truth. Your duty or your heart. Wait. But he was gone, dissolved into shadow and moonlight like he'd never been there at all. Only his scent lingered, wild and dangerous and utterly addictive. Luna pressed her back against the oak tree and closed her eyes, trying to process everything that had just happened. She was mated to a rogue alpha. Her father might be a liar and a fraud. And in 3 days, she was supposed to smile and nod and agree to marry a man who would never be able to touch the deepest parts of her soul. The sound of voices calling her name drifted through the trees, the summit security, probably, wondering where she'd disappeared to. She quickly pulled on her dress and smoothed her hair, trying to look like she'd just been taking a peaceful walk instead of having her entire world turned upside down. But as she made her way back to the lodge, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. The mate bond hummed beneath her skin like a living thing, connecting her to a man she'd been taught to fear her entire life. A man who might be the only one telling her the truth. The reception was still going strong when she slipped back through the doors, and she managed to avoid Marcus Reed's searching gaze long enough to make it to her room. But she knew it was only a temporary reprieve. Tomorrow, the real negotiations would begin. And somewhere out there in the darkness, Kieran Nightshade was planning something that would either save her or destroy everything she'd ever known. The mate bond pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and Luna knew with absolute certainty that her life as she'd known it was over. The only question now was what would rise from the ashes. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The scent of jasmine and betrayal hung heavy in the air as Luna stepped through the carved oak doors of her family's estate. The familiar weight of home, polished marble floors, ancestral portraits watching from gilded frames, the gentle tick of the grandfather clock, should have brought comfort. Instead, it felt like walking into a beautifully appointed cage. Luna, darling. Her mother's voice rang out from the grand staircase, each syllable dripping with forced cheer. Catherine Blackwood descended like a vision in cream silk, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon that perfectly framed her still beautiful face. But Luna caught the tightness around her mother's eyes, the way her manicured fingers gripped the banister just a fraction too hard. Mother. Luna accepted the air kisses, breathing in her mother's signature lavender perfume while fighting the urge to recoil. Something was wrong. The very air seemed charged with tension, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. We have so much to discuss, Catherine said, linking their arms with practiced grace. Your father is waiting in his study. There's been a change of plans. Luna's stomach dropped. What kind of change? They moved through the hallways Luna had raced down as a child, past the conservatory where she'd hidden to read forbidden romance novels, past the kitchen where Cook had snuck her extra cookies. Every step felt like a countdown to her execution. Her father's study was a shrine to pack tradition, leather-bound volumes of pack law, mounted hunting trophies, and the ceremonial silver blade that had been passed down through 7 generations of Blackwood alphas. Alpha Robert Blackwood looked up from his massive mahogany desk, and Luna's breath caught. He looked terrible. The strong, commanding presence she'd known her entire life seemed diminished, his face gaunt and his once vibrant eyes dulled with fatigue. Dark circles shadowed his features, and his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his crystal tumbler. Luna. His voice, though still carrying alpha authority, sounded strained. Come, sit. She settled into the wingback chair across from his desk, the same chair where she'd received countless lectures about pack duty and responsibility. But this felt different. Final. The Crescent Moon Pack has requested we move the wedding date, her father began without preamble. Marcus feels that waiting serves no purpose when the alliance could benefit both packs immediately. Luna's world tilted. Move it to when? 1 week from today. The words hit like a physical blow. 1 week. 7 days. 168 hours until she would be bound to Marcus Thorne for life, until the mate bond that hummed in her veins for another would be buried beneath duty and gold bands. Father, surely we can. The decision is made. His tone brooked no argument, but Luna caught the slight waver, as if the words cost him. The preparations are already underway. Your mother has arranged everything. As if summoned by mention, Catherine appeared beside Luna's chair like a beautiful specter. The dress fittings are tomorrow morning, flowers have been ordered, and the caterers confirmed. It will be a beautiful ceremony, darling. Everything a future Pak Luna deserves. Luna felt the walls closing in. I need time to process this. Time is a luxury we no longer have, her father said, rising from his chair with visible effort. Luna frowned as she noticed him grip the desk's edge for support. When had he become so frail? That night, Luna lay in her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling where glow-in-the-dark stars still formed the constellation patterns she'd mapped out at age 12. The house settled around her with familiar creaks and sighs, but sleep remained elusive. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt it, that pull, that impossible connection to storm-gray eyes and a voice that spoke her name like a prayer. When she finally drifted off near dawn, the dreams came. She stood in a moonlit forest, silver light filtering through ancient pines. The air tasted of rain and wild magic, electric and untamed. Footsteps approached, soft against the moss-covered ground. Luna. Kieran emerged from the shadows like he belonged there, part of the darkness and starlight. His dark hair caught the moon's glow, and those impossible eyes held her captive. You came. This isn't real, she whispered, but her body betrayed her, stepping closer of its own accord. The mate bonds sang between them, a silver thread that grew stronger with each heartbeat. Real enough. His hand reached for her face, fingertips ghosting across her cheek. The touch sent fire racing through her veins. You feel it too. She did. God help her, she did. The connection was undeniable, a force of nature as inevitable as the tide. Her wolf recognized him, called to him, yearned for him in ways that terrified her rational mind. I'm engaged, she said, but the words lacked conviction. To a man who doesn't deserve you. Kieran's voice held an edge of something dangerous. To a man who. The dream shattered like glass. Luna woke gasping, her skin feverish and her heart hammering against her ribs. The sun was setting outside her window, painting her room in shades of amber and rose. She'd slept the entire day away, lost in impossible dreams that felt more real than her waking life. A soft knock interrupted her disorientation. Miss Luna? Mary, her childhood nanny and now the head housekeeper, peered around the door. Your mother asked me to help you prepare. The engagement party begins in 2 hours. The engagement party. Luna had forgotten in her exhaustion. Of course there would be a party. Catherine Blackwood never missed an opportunity to display the family's status and connections. 2 hours later, Luna descended the grand staircase in a flowing midnight blue gown that complemented her dark hair and fair skin. Diamonds glittered at her throat and ears, family heirloom pieces that had adorned generations of Blackwood women. She looked every inch the perfect Pak princess, polished and pristine. If only they knew about the storm raging beneath the surface. The ballroom buzzed with Pak elite and allied families, crystal glasses catching the light from 3 massive chandeliers. The sense of expensive perfume, aged whiskey, and barely contained werewolf musk created a heady cocktail that made Luna's sensitive nose twitch. There's my beautiful bride-to-be. Marcus appeared at her elbow like a shark scenting blood. He looked impeccable in his tailored tuxedo, his golden hair perfectly styled and his smile camera-ready. To outside observers, they probably looked like the perfect couple. Luna accepted his kiss on her cheek, forcing herself not to recoil from his touch. Where Kieran's presence had set her aflame, Marcus's left her cold. You look stunning, Marcus murmured against her ear, his hands settling possessively on the small of her back. Blue has always been your color. Thank you. She managed a smile that felt like broken glass. Though I have to admit, I'm still adjusting to the new timeline. Something flickered in his amber eyes, there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Surely you're as eager as I am to begin our lives together? The alliance between our packs will strengthen us both. Alliance. Not love, not partnership, not even compatibility. Alliance. Luna felt something cold settle in her stomach. The evening progressed in a blur of congratulations and well-wishes. Luna played her part perfectly, accepting compliments on her dress and her upcoming nuptials with practiced grace. But beneath the surface, her instincts prickled with unease. She noticed things. The way Marcus's supporters seemed to cluster together, speaking in low voices. The way certain pack members watched her father with something that looked almost like pity. The way her father himself seemed to fade as the evening wore on, retreating to a corner chair where he nursed the same glass of whiskey for hours. It was nearly midnight when Luna finally escaped to her father's study, seeking a moment of quiet. She pushed open the heavy door and immediately froze. Marcus stood behind her father's desk, a small vial in his hand. He looked up as she entered, and for a split second, his perfect mask slipped. She saw something cold and calculating in those amber eyes, something that made her wolf recoil in instinctive fear. Luna. He smoothly palmed the vial, but not before she caught the glint of silver liquid inside. I was just looking for your father. He seemed unwell earlier. What was that? Her voice was steady, but her heart hammered against her ribs. What was what? His smile was all innocence, but Luna's enhanced senses caught the lie like a discordant note in a symphony. The vial, Marcus. What were you putting in my father's drink? The mask fell away entirely. Marcus straightened to his full height, and suddenly the golden prince she'd known since childhood looked like a stranger. Careful, Luna. Accusations like that could be considered treasonous. Treasonous? The word came out as a whisper. Marcus, what have you done? What I had to do. He moved around the desk with predatory grace. Your father was becoming resistant to the alliance. Questioning whether it was truly in his pack's best interest. A minor adjustment to his medication was necessary to help him see reason. Luna's world tilted. You've been poisoning him? Such an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as persuasion. Marcus reached into his jacket and withdrew a small digital recorder. Of course, if anyone were to discover this conversation, it would be your word against mine. And who would believe that sweet Luna Blackwood would make such wild accusations against her devoted fiancé? The device in his hand chilled her blood. He'd been recording their conversation, twisting her desperate questions into something that could be used against her. However, Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, I have it on good authority that you've been keeping secrets of your own. A midnight encounter in the forest, perhaps? With a certain, unsavory character? Kieran. Somehow, Marcus knew about Kieran. I don't know what you're talking about, Luna lied, but she saw the triumph in his eyes. Kieran Nightshade, Marcus said, savoring the name like fine wine. Exiled alpha of the Shadow Creek Pack. Accused of dark magic and ritual murder. Not exactly the sort of company a future pack Luna should be keeping, don't you think? Luna's knees nearly buckled. Kieran was wanted for murder? The man whose touch had set her soul on fire, whose eyes haunted her dreams, was he truly capable of such darkness? The Pack Council would be very interested to learn of your indiscretion, Marcus continued. Treason by association is a serious charge. Your family could lose everything, status, territory, protection. Your father, in his weakened state, probably wouldn't survive the shame. The threat hung in the air between them like a blade. Luna realized with horrible clarity that she was trapped, caught between her mate bond and her family's survival. What do you want? She whispered. Your complete cooperation. No more questions about your father's health. No more cold shoulders or reluctant smiles. You will be the perfect, adoring bride, and after our wedding, you will help me unite our packs under my leadership. His smile was sharp as winter. Do we understand each other? Luna nodded, tasting bile. Yes. Excellent. Marcus straightened his tie and moved toward the door. Oh, and Luna? Sweet dreams. The next few days passed in a haze of wedding preparations and mounting dread. Luna went through the motions, dress fittings, flower selections, menu tastings. while her world crumbled around her. Her father grew weaker by the day, and she could do nothing to help him without risking her family's destruction. But the dreams continued. Every night, Kieran came to her in visions of moonlight and shadow, and every morning she woke with his name on her lips and tears on her cheeks. "Something's coming," he whispered in one dream, his storm-gray eyes urgent. "Your pack is in danger." "What kind of danger?" she asked, but the dream was already fading. "Trust no one," his voice echoed as she woke. "Not even." The warning proved prophetic. Reports began filtering in of strange attacks on Pack territory, livestock found drained of blood, mysterious symbols carved into trees, Pack members reporting nightmares and unexplained illnesses. Luna's father, despite his weakened state, called emergency council meetings that stretched late into the night. It was during one such meeting that Luna found the first message. She'd gone to her father's study to retrieve files he'd requested when she saw it, a piece of parchment on his desk, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and writhe in the lamplight. Ancient runes, older than Pack law, older than werewolf civilization itself. "The chains that bind you can be broken, but the price is blood and shadow. Choose wisely, daughter of wolves." Luna's hands trembled as she read the message. The runes seemed to burn themselves into her vision, and she knew with cold certainty that only one person could have written them. Only one person would know the old languages, the forbidden magics. Kieran. More messages followed over the next 2 days. Always in the same ancient script, always appearing where only she would find them, tucked into her jewelry box, slipped between the pages of her books, left on her pillow like deadly love notes. "The betrayer walks among you. Silver tongue, golden lies. Blood calls to blood." Each message sent ice through her veins, but she couldn't ignore their warnings. The attacks on Pack territory were growing bolder, more brazen. 3 families had been found dead in their homes, drained of blood and arranged in ritualistic circles. The Pack was living in fear, and her wedding day approached like an executioner's axe. On the night before her wedding, Luna couldn't sleep. She wandered the halls of her family home like a ghost, touching familiar objects and trying to memorize every detail before she lost them forever. Tomorrow she would become Mrs. Marcus Thorne, and nothing would ever be the same. She was passing the conservatory when she heard it, a low whimper, barely audible through the glass doors. Luna froze, every instinct screaming danger, but her heart recognized that voice. "Sarah," she whispered, pressing her face to the glass. Serafina Mills had been her closest friend since childhood, the daughter of her father's Beta and the sister Luna had never had. Sweet, loyal Sarah who braided flowers in her hair and believed in fairy tale endings. The whimpering came again, and Luna's blood turned to ice. She pushed through the conservatory doors and into the moonlit garden beyond. The scent hit her first, copper and death and something else, something that made her wolf howl in terror. She followed the smell deeper into the garden, past the rose bushes her mother tended with such care, past the fountain where she and Sarah had made wishes as children. She found her friend in the ancient grove at the garden's heart, where her ancestors had once held Pack gatherings under the stars. Sarah lay in the center of a ritual circle carved deep into the earth, her golden hair spread like a halo around her pale face. Her skin was marble white, drained of every drop of blood, and her blue eyes stared sightlessly at the moon above. Luna's scream died in her throat as a shadow detached itself from the tree-line. Kieran stepped into the moonlight, his dark clothes making him look like death himself. His storm-gray eyes met hers across Sarah's body, and Luna saw no warmth there, no recognition of their connection. Only cold calculation. "Hello, Luna," he said softly, and his voice was nothing like the gentle whisper from her dreams. This voice held edges sharp enough to cut. "I've been waiting for you." Blood stained his hands. Sarah's blood. "You," Luna whispered, her world fragmenting like broken glass. "You did this." "I did what was necessary." He moved around the ritual circle with predatory grace, never taking his eyes from hers. "Your friend died to send a message." "What message?" The words scraped her throat raw. "That nowhere is safe. That the old powers are rising. That your perfect little world is built on lies and blood." He stopped directly across from her, Sarah's body between them like an accusation. Did you really think you could ignore what we are? What we're meant to be? We're meant to be nothing, Luna snarled, her grief and terror crystallizing into rage. You're a monster. A killer. Yes, Kieran agreed with terrible calm. I am. And soon, you'll understand why that's exactly what this pack needs. Luna backed away, her phone already in her hand, but Kieran made no move to stop her. He simply watched as she stumbled toward the house, his storm-gray eyes burning her retreat into memory. Run, little wolf, he called after her, and his voice carried on the wind like a promise. But you can't run from what you are. From what we are. Luna ran. She ran through the garden and into the house, up the stairs and into her father's study where she collapsed, shaking, at his desk. Her fingers fumbled with her phone as she dialed emergency services, but even as she spoke to the dispatcher, she knew it was too late. Too late for Sarah. Too late for innocence. Too late for the simple life she'd planned. As sirens wailed in the distance and her family's estate erupted into chaos, Luna stared at her reflection in the study's dark window and saw a stranger looking back. A woman caught between two worlds, two loyalties, two impossible choices. Tomorrow she would marry Marcus Thorne and bind herself to a man who had poisoned her father and threatened her family. Tonight, she had learned that her mate, the man destiny had chosen for her, was capable of murder. And somewhere in the space between those two truths, Luna Blackwood began to understand that her real story was just beginning. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. The moon hung red and swollen in the midnight sky, casting everything in shades of crimson and shadow. Luna had been running for 20 minutes through the dense forest that bordered her family's estate, following Kieran's scent like a bloodhound following prey. Her wedding dress, she'd never changed after fleeing the house, caught on brambles and tore on low branches, but she barely noticed. Her mind was a hurricane of rage, grief, and questions that demanded answers. She found him in a clearing deep in the woods, sitting on a fallen log as if he'd been waiting for her. The blood moon painted his dark hair silver red, and his storm-gray eyes reflected the unnatural light like mirrors. He looked up as she burst through the tree-line, and she saw no surprise in his expression, only a terrible sadness that made her wolf whimper despite her fury. "You came," he said quietly, his voice carrying none of the cold calculation from the garden. This was the voice from her dreams, warm honey over broken glass. "You killed her." Luna's words came out as a snarl, her wolf so close to the surface that her canines extended. Sarah never hurt anyone. She was innocent. Yes, she was. Kieran rose slowly, his hands visible and empty. And that's exactly why she had to die. The casual admission hit Luna like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, her hand flying to her chest where her heart felt like it was tearing apart. "How can you say that? How can you stand there, Anne?" "Because if I hadn't killed her, Marcus would have made her death 100 times worse." Kieran's voice cut through her anguish like a blade. She was going to be the final sacrifice, Luna. The keystone in a ritual that would have bound every werewolf pack in North America under his control. Luna shook her head violently. "You're lying. Marcus isn't capable of." "Isn't he?" Kieran stepped closer, and she caught his scent, wild forest and storm winds, but underneath it, something else. Pain. Exhaustion. The kind of bone-deep weariness that came from carrying impossible burdens. "Your father has been growing weaker for months. Your pack members are having nightmares, unexplained illnesses. Livestock drained of blood, ritual circles carved into sacred ground. Does any of that sound like the work of a loving fiancé?" "It sounds like the work of a banished alpha practicing blood magic," Luna shot back, but her voice lacked conviction. Deep down, in the part of her that had always sensed something wrong about Marcus's perfect facade, doubt was taking root. Kieran laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what they told you? That I was banished for practicing dark magic?" The Pack Council said. The Pack Council wanted me to teach them blood magic, Kieran interrupted, his eyes blazing. Ancient rituals that my pack had guarded for generations. Spells that could drain the life force from other werewolves and transfer it to the caster. When I refused, they branded me a dangerous rogue and cast me out. Luna's world tilted. That's impossible. The council upholds our laws, protects our people. The council is corrupt. Kieran's words fell like stones into still water. Half of them are in Marcus's pocket, and the other half are too frightened to speak out. Your beloved fiancé has been systematically murdering werewolves from smaller packs, stealing their power to fuel his own ambitions. Prove it. The words tore from Luna's throat. If what you're saying is true, prove it. Instead of answering, Kieran reached into his jacket and withdrew a leather journal, its pages yellowed with age. He held it out to her, and she recognized the handwriting immediately, her father's careful script, though shakier than usual. Your father has been investigating the attacks, Kieran said as Luna took the journal with trembling hands. He suspected Marcus weeks ago but couldn't prove it. Until now. Luna opened the journal and began to read, her heart sinking with each page. Her father had documented everything, the pattern of attacks, always targeting isolated families from smaller packs. The victims' bodies, always found drained of blood in ritual circles. The timing, which always coincided with Marcus's visits to neighboring territories. This doesn't prove Marcus is responsible, Luna said, but her voice was hollow. It could be coincidence, or... Page 15, Kieran said quietly. Luna flipped to the designated page and froze. There, in her father's meticulous handwriting, was a detailed analysis of the ritual symbols found at each crime scene. Symbols that matched diagrams in an ancient tome Marcus had shown her months ago, claiming it was a historical artifact from his family's collection. Marcus has access to the Grimoire of Shadows, her father had written. The spells contained within are powerful enough to drain life force from multiple victims simultaneously. If he's truly attempting the Dominion ritual described in Chapter 7, he would need 13 sacrifices of pure blood. Luna's hands shook as she counted the victims mentioned in the journal. 12 families. 12 sets of werewolves drained of life and power. Sarah would have been the 13th. Oh God, she whispered, the journal falling from nerveless fingers. It's all true. Your father was going to confront Marcus tomorrow night, after your wedding, Kieran continued, his voice gentle now. I couldn't let that happen. Marcus would have killed him and made it look like a heart attack, another unfortunate casualty of his weak health. Luna sank to her knees in the dew-wet grass, her wedding dress pooling around her like spilled moonlight. Everything she'd believed, everything she'd trusted, crumbled to ash in her mouth. Marcus wasn't her devoted fiancé, he was a monster who had been slowly poisoning her father and planning to murder her best friend. And Kieran, dangerous, exiled Kieran, had been trying to protect them all. Why didn't you tell me sooner, she asked, looking up at him through tears. If you knew what he was planning, why wait until? Because I needed you to see for yourself. To question. To doubt. Kieran knelt beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. If I had simply told you Marcus was evil, would you have believed me? Or would you have run straight to him and warned him that his secret was out? Luna flinched because she knew the answer. A week ago, she would have chosen Marcus without hesitation. She would have reported Kieran to the Pack Council and never looked back. The mate bond, she whispered. You used it to make me doubt. I used it to help you see the truth. Kieran's hand hovered near her face, not quite touching. The dreams, the messages, they were all meant to wake up the part of you that already knew something was wrong. A sound in the distance made them both freeze, the low rumble of motorcycle engines, growing closer. Kieran's head snapped up, his nostrils flaring. They found us, he said, rising to his feet in one fluid motion. We need to go. Now. Who found us? Luna struggled to stand, her elaborate dress making movement difficult. Marcus's enforcers. He knows you're missing, knows you found your friend's body. Kieran grabbed her hand, electricity shooting up her arm at the contact. He can't afford to let you live, not when you know too much. The motorcycle sounds grew louder, joined by the howl of ATVs racing through the forest. Luna caught scents on the wind, unfamiliar werewolves, their musk tainted with something dark and oily that made her stomach churn. My family, she gasped. If they're after me, they'll be safe as long as you're not there. Kieran tugged her toward the deeper woods. Marcus needs you alive for the ritual. If you disappear, he'll have to call off the attack. They ran through the forest, Luna's heels abandoned after the first 100 yards. Her bare feet found purchase on moss and loam as her wolf senses sharpened, guiding her around obstacles in the dark. Behind them, their pursuers crashed through the underbrush with far less finesse. There, Kieran pointed to a rocky outcropping ahead. Cave system. We can lose them in the tunnels. They reached the caves just as the first ATV burst into the clearing they'd vacated. Luna caught a glimpse of the riders, werewolves, but wrong somehow. Their eyes glowed not with the natural gold of their kind, but with an sickly green light that spoke of corruption. What's wrong with them? She whispered as they slipped into the cave's mouth. Blood magic, Kieran replied grimly. Marcus has been experimenting on his own supporters, making them stronger but stealing their humanity in the process. They moved deeper into the cave system, guided by Kieran's supernatural night vision. The stone walls were carved with ancient symbols. Not the ritual circles of death Luna had seen, but something older and more primal. Protection wards, she realized, recognizing them from half-remembered lessons about pack history. This place, she said as understanding dawned. This is where your pack used to gather. The Shadow Creek pack held their full moon ceremonies here for 300 years, Kieran confirmed. The wards are still active, powered by generations of werewolf magic. We're safe here. They emerged into a vast underground chamber lit by phosphorescent crystals embedded in the walls. Ancient paintings covered the stone surfaces, wolves running beneath crescent moons, werewolves in human form raising their hands to channel celestial power, rituals of healing and protection rather than death and domination. Luna moved toward one painting in particular, drawn by instincts she didn't understand. It showed a woman standing in a ritual circle, but this circle glowed with silver light rather than the red of blood magic. The woman's hands were raised to catch moonbeams streaming down from above, and power radiated from her invisible waves. A moon witch, Kieran said, coming to stand beside her. Werewolves born with the ability to channel lunar power directly. They were the guardians of our people, the protectors of the old ways. Were? Luna traced the painted figure with one finger, feeling an odd resonance in her bones. The bloodline was thought to be extinct. The last known moon which died over a century ago. Kieran's voice was soft, speculative. But sometimes the gifts skip generations, lying dormant until the right circumstances awaken them. A crash echoed from the cave entrance, followed by harsh voices and the scrape of claws on stone. Their pursuers had found them. The wards won't hold against blood magic forever, Kieran said, his body tensing for battle. We need another way out. Luna closed her eyes, trying to remember the cave maps from her childhood explorations. There had been another entrance, she was sure of it, but where? Pain exploded through her skull as something slammed against the protective wards. She gasped, doubling over as images flashed through her mind, not memories, but visions. The cave system as it had been centuries ago, when the Shadow Creek pack had called this place home. She saw every tunnel, every chamber, every hidden passage. Luna? Kieran's hand was on her shoulder, his voice thick with concern. I can see them, she whispered. The tunnels. There's a passage behind the altar that leads to the old ceremonial grounds. Kieran followed her gaze to what she had taken for a natural rock formation but now recognized as a carved altar, green with age and spotted with lichen. How could you possibly know that? Another impact shook the wards, stronger this time. Cracks appeared in the glowing symbols carved into the cave walls. I don't know, Luna admitted. But I can feel it, like a map in my head. They made their way to the altar just as voices echoed from the main tunnel. Luna pressed her hands against the stone surface, searching for the hidden mechanism she somehow knew was there. Her fingers found a depression shaped like a crescent moon, and she pressed down. The altar swung aside with a grinding of stone on stone, revealing a narrow passage beyond. Impossible, Kieran breathed. That passage was sealed when my pack was banished. The wards should have. Later, Luna interrupted as the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. Explanations later. They squeezed through the passage just as the protective wards finally failed. Behind them, inhuman roars echoed through the chamber as Marcus's corrupted enforcers poured into the sacred space. The hidden passage led upward through natural stone formations that gradually gave way to worked stone and ancient carvings. Luna led the way with sure steps, following instincts she couldn't explain. The path was clearly marked in her mind, as if she'd walked it 1,000 times before. They emerged onto a circular platform surrounded by standing stones, each one carved with phases of the moon. The blood moon hung directly overhead, bathing everything in crimson light. Luna gasped as power washed over her, not the dark, oily sensation of blood magic, but something clean and bright and infinite. The old ceremonial grounds, Kieran said wonderingly. I haven't been here since. Since your pack was banished, Luna finished. She moved to the center of the circle, drawn by forces she couldn't name. The moment her feet touched the carved symbols at the platform's heart, the standing stones began to glow with silver light. Luna, Kieran's voice was tight with something between awe and fear. You need to step away from there. She tried to move, but her feet felt rooted to the stone. Power surged through her body, starting at her feet and racing up her spine like liquid starlight. Her vision sharpened until she could see every grain of stone, every leaf on the surrounding trees. She could sense the corrupted werewolves still searching the caves below, their tainted life forces like acid stains on the natural world. I can't, she gasped. Something's happening to me. The standing stones pulsed brighter, and Luna felt her consciousness expand beyond her body. She could sense every living thing from miles around, her family sleeping uneasily in their beds, Marcus pacing his suite at the hotel where he was staying for the wedding, the corrupted enforcers emerging from the caves with murder in their glowing eyes. And underneath it all, she felt the moon itself, ancient and patient and infinitely powerful. You're awakening, Kieran said, moving closer to the circle's edge but not daring to cross it. Luna, you're a moon witch. The power is recognizing you, accepting you as its conduit. Power continued to build within her, threatening to overflow. Luna threw back her head and screamed, but the sound that emerged wasn't entirely human. It was the howl of a wolf touched by celestial fire, the song of the moon made manifest. The corrupted werewolves burst from the treeline, their green eyes blazing with malevolent hunger. There were 6 of them, moving with the coordination of a pack but lacking the natural grace of true werewolves. They spread out around the ceremonial circle, clearly intending to surround their prey. Stay back, Kieran snarled, shifting partially into his wolf form. His canines lengthened, his muscles bulged, and his eyes blazed with protective fury. You want her, you go through me first. The lead enforcer laughed, a sound like grinding glass. Stand aside, exile. Our master wants the witch alive, but he said nothing about you. They attacked as one, 6 corrupted beings moving with inhuman speed. Kieran met them with the fury of an alpha protecting his mate, but Luna could see he was outnumbered. Blood magic had made the enforcers stronger than normal werewolves, and they fought without the restraint of honor or mercy. Luna watched in horror as Kieran took blow after blow, his body bleeding from dozens of wounds. The power inside her raged at his pain, demanding release, demanding vengeance. Let me help you, a voice whispered in her mind, not Kieran's voice, but something older and infinitely patient. Let me show you what you truly are. Yes, Luna whispered, surrendering to the power that had been building within her. Silver light exploded outward from the ceremonial circle, washing over the clearing in waves of purifying energy. The corrupted werewolves screamed as the light touched them, their green eyes flickering as the blood magic that sustained them began to burn away. Luna rose into the air, her torn wedding dress billowing around her like wings, her dark hair whipping in winds that touched nothing else. Power poured from her invisible streams, connecting her to each standing stone, to the moon above, to the very heart of the earth below. She raised her hands, and moonbeams obeyed her call, striking down like silver arrows. Where they touched the corrupted enforcers, the taint of blood magic was scorched away, leaving behind empty husks that crumbled to dust. In seconds, it was over. The clearing was silent except for the whisper of wind through the standing stones and Kieran's labored breathing as he staggered to his feet. Luna drifted back down to the platform, her feet touching stone with infinite gentleness. The power was still there, still flowing through her, but controlled now. Accepted. A moon witch, Kieran said wonderingly as he approached the circle's edge. I should have known. The way you responded to the mate bond, the way you could read the ancient passages. I don't understand any of this, Luna said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they weren't entirely true. Deep in her bones, in the part of her that howled at the full moon and dreamed of running wild through endless forests, she did understand. This power was her birthright, her purpose, her destiny. Your bloodline, Kieran said, pieces clicking into place. The Blackwood pack has always been strong, but I thought it was just alpha genetics. But if one of your ancestors was a moon witch, the power could pass down through the generations, Luna finished. Dormant until awakened by finding your true mate, Kieran said softly. The mate bond is what triggered your awakening. Luna, do you understand what this means? She met his storm-gray eyes across the glowing circle. It means everything I thought I knew about myself was wrong. It means you're the most powerful werewolf alive, Kieran corrected. It means you could stop Marcus, protect your pack, save your father. It means I'm not human anymore. The words hung between them like a bridge that, once crossed, could never be uncrossed. Luna had spent her entire life trying to balance her werewolf nature with her human responsibilities, to be civilized and controlled and acceptable to pack society. Now she was something else entirely. Something ancient and wild and dangerous. Does it frighten you? Kieran asked quietly. Luna considered the question seriously. The power flowing through her was vast enough to level mountains, to pull the moon from the sky, to reshape the world according to her will. It should have terrified her. Instead, for the first time in her life, she felt complete. No, she said, stepping toward the circle's edge. It doesn't frighten me. It feels like coming home. Kieran held out his hand, and Luna took it without hesitation. The moment their skin touched, the mate bond flared between them like a supernova, no longer fought or suppressed but embraced with her whole heart. I'm sorry I doubted you, she whispered as he drew her closer. I'm sorry I believed their lies. You had every reason to doubt, Kieran replied, his free hand coming up to cup her face. I'm a dangerous man who's done terrible things. But Luna, I swear to you on my pack's sacred ground, I will never hurt you. I will never lie to you. And I will spend the rest of my life earning the trust you're giving me now. She could see the truth of it in his eyes, feel it in the steady beat of his heart against her chest. This was her mate, her other half, the piece of her soul she'd been searching for without knowing it. I love you, she said, the words feeling both new and ancient on her tongue. I don't care about the prophecies or the politics or what anyone else thinks. I love you. And I love you, Kieran replied, his voice rough with emotion. My fierce, beautiful, impossible witch. My mate. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and reverent, as if she were something precious beyond measure. Luna melted into him, every cell in her body singing with rightness. This was what she'd been waiting for her entire life, not the perfect marriage her parents had planned, but this wild, dangerous, transformative love that made her feel more herself than she'd ever been. The blood moon pulsed overhead, casting them in crimson light as their kiss deepened. Power flowed between them, silver and storm gray, mate bond and magic twining together until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. A slow clap echoed across the clearing. Luna and Kieran broke apart, spinning toward the sound. Marcus stood at the edge of the ceremonial ground, no longer bothering with his Golden Prince facade. His amber eyes glowed with stolen power, and darkness writhed around him like living smoke. Behind him, an army of corrupted werewolves emerged from the forest, dozens of them, their green eyes blazing with unholy light. At their head walked figures Luna recognized with horror as members of the Pack Council, their faces twisted by blood magic into something barely recognizable as werewolf. "How touching," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the distance. "The exile and the witch, pledging their love under a blood moon. How perfectly dramatic." Marcus. Luna stepped protectively in front of Kieran, power crackling around her like silver lightning. "It's over. I know what you've been doing, what you've done to my father, to all those families." "What I've done?" Marcus laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "My dear Luna, what I've done is evolve. While you and your kind cling to outdated notions of honor and natural law, I've embraced progress. Power. The future of our species." The corrupted Pack Council members spread out around the ceremonial circle, moving with unnatural coordination. Luna counted at least 40 enemies, all of them enhanced by stolen life force and dark magic. "You can't win this fight," Marcus continued conversationally. "Oh, you're powerful, I'll grant you that. A moon witch, imagine my surprise when my scouts reported your little light show. But you're untrained, undisciplined. You don't even know what you are, let alone how to use what you've been given." "Try me," Luna snarled, silver fire dancing between her fingers. "I think I will," Marcus replied, and the army of corruption charged. The battle was about to begin. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The first wave of corrupted werewolves crashed against Luna's silver barrier like a tide against stone. Power flowed through her in torrents, the ancient ceremonial grounds amplifying her abilities until the very air shimmered with lunar magic. But as the battle raged around them, Marcus stood apart from his army, watching her with the calculating gaze of a predator studying prey. "Magnificent," he called out over the chaos, his voice carrying a note of genuine admiration that made Luna's skin crawl. "Do you feel it, Luna? The true extent of your power? You're not just any moon witch, you're so much more." Luna hurled another bolt of silver fire at the nearest attacker, her wedding dress now torn and blood-stained but her resolve unshakable. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't," Marcus laughed, gesturing for his forces to fall back. They obeyed instantly, forming a circle around the ceremonial grounds but making no further attacks. "Your father has been very careful to keep certain family secrets from you." Something cold settled in Luna's stomach. "What secrets?" Marcus reached into his jacket and withdrew an ancient tome bound in what looked disturbingly like human skin. The book pulsed with dark energy, and Luna felt her power recoil from it instinctively. "The Chronicle of Bloodlines," Marcus said, stroking the book's cover lovingly. "A complete genealogical record of every supernatural lineage in North America. It makes for fascinating reading, particularly the section on extinct magical bloodlines." He opened the book, pages fluttering in a wind that touched nothing else. "The lunar bloodline, the most powerful moon witches ever born. Capable of channeling not just moonlight, but the very essence of the lunar cycle itself. They could grant immortality, reshape reality, even tear holes between dimensions." His amber eyes found hers across the circle. "The last known heir died in 1847. Or so everyone believed." Luna's blood turned to ice. "You're lying." "Am I?" Marcus tilted the book so she could see the page, a family tree that stretched back centuries, with names written in silver ink that seemed to glow in the moonlight. At the very bottom, in fresh script that looked suspiciously like her father's handwriting, was her own name. Luna Catherine Blackwood, last of the lunar bloodline. Heir to power beyond imagining. "That's impossible," Luna whispered, but even as she spoke, pieces began falling into place. Her unusual strength, even for an alpha's daughter. The way other werewolves had always seemed slightly uneasy around her. The dreams of running beneath silver moons that felt more like memories than fantasies. Your great-great-grandmother was Celeste Lunar, the most powerful moon witch in recorded history, Marcus continued, his voice taking on the cadence of a storyteller. She faked her death to escape those who would use her power, changed her name to Blackwood, and settled into obscurity. But the bloodline doesn't lie, Luna. Power like yours doesn't simply disappear. Kieran growled low in his throat, positioning himself protectively between Luna and Marcus. What do you want? What I've always wanted, Marcus replied. To complete the Dominion ritual. But you see, I've been thinking too small. 13 sacrifices would make me Supreme Alpha of North America, yes. But a lunar bloodline witch. His eyes gleamed with avarice. Her power could make me Supreme Alpha of the world. The revelation hit Luna like a physical blow. She wasn't just powerful, she was the key to everything Marcus had been planning. Every death, every sacrifice, every corrupted soul had been leading to this moment. The engagement, she breathed, understanding dawning like a cold sunrise. My father, he knew, didn't he? He knew what I was, what you wanted. Marcus's smile was razor-sharp. Robert Blackwood is many things, but he's not stupid. He realized what you were months ago, when your power began manifesting in your dreams. He came to me with a proposal, your hand in marriage in exchange for a peaceful transition of power. No messy battles, no unnecessary deaths. Just a simple wedding and a new world order. The world tilted around Luna. Her father, the man she'd worshipped, the alpha she'd respected above all others, had sold her to a monster. Not to save their pack, but to hand over the most dangerous power in the supernatural world to a madman. You're lying, she said again, but her voice cracked on the words. Call him, Marcus suggested pleasantly. Ask him yourself. I'm sure he's awake, after all, his little girl has been missing for hours. With trembling fingers, Luna pulled out her phone and dialed her father's number. He answered on the first ring. Luna? Thank God, where are you? Your mother and I have been worried sick. Did you know? The words scraped her throat raw. About what I am? About the lunar bloodline? Silence stretched across the connection, long enough that Luna's heart broke a little more with each passing second. Luna, her father said finally, his voice heavy with exhaustion and defeat. Come home. We need to talk. Did you know? She repeated, power crackling around her like silver lightning. Another pause. Then, quietly, yes. The phone slipped from Luna's nerveless fingers, clattering against the stone platform. Kieran caught her as her knees buckled, his arms wrapping around her with desperate strength. Luna, whatever he told you. He sold me, she whispered against Kieran's chest. My own father sold me to that monster. The best part, Marcus called out cheerfully, is that the ritual doesn't require your willing participation. Unconscious works just as well as cooperative. Though I had hoped we could do this the civilized way. Luna raised her head, silver fire blazing in her eyes. Over my dead body. Oh, my dear, Marcus chuckled, closing the ancient tome with a snap. That's exactly what I'm counting on. The corrupted army surged forward again, but this time Luna was ready. Power exploded from her in waves, silver light so bright it turned night to day. The ancient standing stones resonated with her magic, amplifying it until the very ground shook beneath their feet. But Marcus had been preparing for this battle far longer than she had. As her power reached its peak, he raised his hands and spoke words in a language that predated civilization. Dark magic rose to meet her light, not to overpower it but to entangle it, to bind it, to slowly strangle it into submission. You're strong, Marcus said conversationally as their powers clashed in the space between them. Stronger than I expected. But you're untrained, undisciplined. Raw power without technique is just noise. Luna felt the truth of his words as her silver fire began to dim. She was pouring everything she had into the battle, but Marcus's centuries of study and preparation gave him the advantage. Slowly, inexorably, his darkness began to overwhelm her light. Luna. Kieran's voice cut through the chaos. We have to go. Now. She looked around the battlefield and realized he was right. Half of Marcus's army lay dead or dying, victims of her unleashed power, but the other half was closing in. And Marcus himself was barely breathing hard, his stolen power seemingly inexhaustible. "The Moon Gate," Kieran said urgently, pointing to one of the standing stones that glowed brighter than the others. "It's a portal, my pack used it for emergencies. But I need you to open it." Luna didn't ask how she was supposed to open a portal she'd never seen before. The knowledge was there in her bones, written in the same ancient script as the power that flowed through her veins. She pressed her hands against the glowing stone and felt pathways through space and time spread out before her like a map. "Where?" she gasped as Marcus's magic pressed closer. "Home," Kieran replied simply. Luna found the thread she needed, a silver pathway that led to a place that felt like safety, like sanctuary, like pack bonds untainted by corruption. She grasped it with her mind and pulled. The standing stone erupted with light, revealing a swirling portal that showed glimpses of a moonlit forest on the other side. Kieran grabbed her hand and together they leaped through, leaving Marcus's roars of fury echoing behind them. They tumbled out of the portal onto soft moss in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. The air here tasted clean and wild, untainted by the corruption they'd left behind. Luna lay gasping on the forest floor, her power temporarily exhausted from opening the portal. "Welcome to Haven," Kieran said softly, helping her to her feet. Luna looked around in wonder. The forest was beautiful in a way that spoke to her wolf soul. Ancient trees that had never known an axe, streams that ran crystal clear under the starlight, and everywhere the sense of deep, abiding peace. But more than that, she could feel the magic woven into the very fabric of this place. Protection spells, concealment wards, barriers against those who would bring harm. "Your pack's territory?" "What's left of it," Kieran confirmed. "After we were banished, those loyal to me followed into exile. We've been living here for the past 5 years, protecting what we could salvage." As if summoned by his words, figures began emerging from the trees. Werewolves in human form, but Luna could sense their wolf spirit strong and uncorrupted. They moved with the natural grace of their kind, and she noticed that several carried what looked like ancient artifacts, a crystal sphere that pulsed with inner light, a staff topped with a crescent moon, a cloak that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. Alpha, a woman with silver-streaked hair, stepped forward. "You're hurt." Luna looked at Kieran with concern and realized the woman was right. Blood seeped from dozens of wounds, and his face was pale with exhaustion. He'd taken the brunt of the battle's violence while she'd focused on channeling her power. "I'm fine, Elena," Kieran said, but his voice was strained. "This is Luna. She's my mate." The woman, Elena, looked Luna up and down with sharp intelligence. "The Moon Witch. The one Marcus has been hunting. You know about that?" "We know about a lot of things," Elena replied. "It's our job to know. We're the keepers, the last guardians of magical artifacts and ancient knowledge. When the Pack Council decided to auction off our heritage to the highest bidder, some of us chose a different path." She gestured to the artifacts her pack mates carried. "These are the treasures of our people, items of power that could reshape the world in the wrong hands. We've been keeping them safe, moving them when necessary, protecting them from those who would abuse their power." "Like Marcus," Luna said. "Especially like Marcus." Elena's expression darkened. "He's been hunting us for years, trying to force us to hand over the lunar crown." Luna frowned. "The what?" Kieran and Elena exchanged glances. "You really don't know," Elena said wonderingly. "The lunar crown is the most powerful artifact ever created by your bloodline. It allows the wearer to channel the full power of the moon itself, to grant immortality, to reshape reality, to command every werewolf in existence." Ice settled in Luna's stomach. "And you have it?" "We've been guarding it," Kieran said carefully. "Waiting for someone worthy to claim it. Someone from the true bloodline who could use its power to restore balance instead of destroy it." Before Luna could respond, alarm calls echoed through the forest. Howls of warning, the sound of running feet, and underneath it all, a scent that made Luna's heart stop. Her father's scent. And her mother's, tinged with fear and pain. They found us, Elena breathed. But how? The concealment wards are useless against blood magic, came a familiar voice from the treeline. Robert Blackwood stepped into the clearing, his alpha presence diminished but still unmistakable. Behind him came Marcus's corrupted army, and clutched in the arms of two enforcers was Catherine Blackwood, a gag in her mouth and terror in her eyes. "Hello, Luna," her father said, and she could hear the agony in his voice. "I'm sorry. I'm so very sorry." Marcus emerged from the shadows like a nightmare-given form. "Thank you, Robert. Your cooperation has been illuminating." "You said you'd let her go," Robert said desperately. "You promised if I led you here." "I promised I wouldn't kill her immediately," Marcus corrected. "I never said anything about letting her go. After all, I might need leverage for future negotiations." Luna felt something die inside her chest. "You brought him here. You led him to the one place that was supposed to be safe." "He has your mother," Robert said, his voice breaking. "Luna, he was going to kill her. I couldn't lose her too." "So you decided to sacrifice an entire pack instead?" Kieran snarled, his remaining strength gathering for one last fight. "I decided to save my wife," Robert shot back. "My daughter is strong enough to protect herself. Catherine isn't." The casual dismissal, the assumption that Luna was expendable while her mother needed protection, cut deeper than any blade. Luna realized with crystalline clarity that her father had never really seen her as his daughter. She'd always been a tool, a weapon, a resource to be managed and deployed as needed. "The lunar crown," Marcus said pleasantly. "Hand it over, and I might consider making your deaths quick." "Never," Elena spat, clutching a ornate chest that Luna hadn't noticed before. Marcus shrugged. "I was hoping you'd say that. I do so enjoy the struggle." The battle erupted with savage intensity. Marcus's corrupted army fell upon the Keeper pack like a plague, their enhanced strength and speed overwhelming even the Guardian's skill and determination. Luna tried to summon her power, but exhaustion from opening the portal left her weak and struggling. She watched in horror as the werewolves who had welcomed her, who had protected magical treasures for years, fell beneath claws enhanced by stolen life force. Elena fought like a woman possessed, the ornate chest clutched against her chest, but Luna could see she was being driven back toward the ancient oak at the clearing's heart. "Kieran!" Luna screamed as she saw three corrupted enforcers converge on her mate. He moved like liquid death, every motion precise and deadly despite his injuries. But he was one against many, and blood magic had made his enemies stronger than nature intended. Luna felt his pain through their bond as claws raked across his chest, as teeth found his shoulder, as his strength finally began to fail. The moment that would haunt her forever came in crystalline slow motion. An enforcer's claws, glowing with unnatural green fire, drove toward Kieran's heart. He tried to dodge, but exhaustion made him a fraction too slow. The claws punched through his chest with a wet sound that Luna felt in her bones. Kieran staggered, blood spreading across his shirt like spilled wine. His storm-gray eyes found hers across the battlefield, and she saw no fear there, only love, and regret, and a desperate wish that things could have been different. He collapsed. "No!" Luna's scream tore from her throat with such force that every werewolf in the clearing stopped fighting. Power exploded from her in waves, raw and untrained and devastating in its intensity. The enforcer who had struck Kieran down disintegrated where he stood, reduced to ash by the force of her rage. But even as her enemies fled from her fury, Luna could feel Kieran's life ebbing through their mate bond. The claws had punctured his heart, and no amount of werewolf healing could repair that kind of damage. He was dying, and she was helpless to stop it. "Touching," Marcus said, seemingly unaffected by the chaos around him. "But I'm afraid sentiment won't save him." "Nothing will, actually. Those claws were blessed with a curse that prevents supernatural healing. He has perhaps 5 minutes before his heart stops entirely." Luna knelt beside Kieran, gathering him into her arms. His breathing was shallow and labored, his skin growing cold despite the warm night air. "Luna," he whispered, his hand finding her face. The crown, don't let him have it. I can save you, Luna said desperately. My power, if I can channel enough lunar energy. No. Kieran's grip on her hand tightened. Too dangerous. Untrained power like that, you could lose yourself to the magic. Become something else entirely. I don't care, Luna sobbed. I can't lose you. I won't. You have to, Kieran said gently. The world needs you more than I do. Promise me, if using your power to save me means Marcus gets what he wants, let me go. Luna looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw the truth there. To save him, she would have to pour everything she had into healing magic she didn't understand. She would be defenseless afterward, easy prey for Marcus and his army. The lunar crown would fall into the wrong hands, and the world would burn. I can't, she whispered. You can, Kieran said, his voice growing fainter. You're stronger than you know. Stronger than your father ever gave you credit for. Stronger than Marcus realizes. His breathing hitched, and Luna felt his heart skip a beat through their bond. Choose, Marcus called out cheerfully. Save your mate and doom the world, or let him die and keep your power intact. Either way, I win. Either you're too weak to stop me afterward, or you're too broken by grief to fight effectively. Quite the delicious dilemma, don't you think? Luna looked at Kieran, dying in her arms. Looked at Elena, still protecting the lunar crown despite the blood streaming down her face. Looked at her father, standing frozen with horror at what his choices had unleashed. The weight of the world settled on her shoulders, and Luna Blackwood, last of the lunar bloodline, Moon Witch, and Alpha's daughter, had to decide who would live and who would die. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. Time crystallized into a single, impossible moment. Kieran's heartbeat faltered beneath Luna's hands, each irregular thump echoing through their mate bond like a countdown to oblivion. Around them, the battle raged, Marcus's corrupted army pressing closer, Elena clutching the lunar crown with desperate determination, her father standing frozen in the wreckage of his choices. But Luna's world had narrowed to the man dying in her arms. Choose quickly, my dear, Marcus called out, his voice silk over steel. His heart is stopping. Luna felt it too, the stuttering rhythm that meant Kieran had perhaps 30 seconds before the curse-blessed claws claimed his life. 30 seconds to decide between love and duty, between her heart and the world's safety. She looked into Kieran's storm-gray eyes and saw no expectation there, no demand that she save him at any cost. Only acceptance, and a love so profound it made her chest ache. I'm sorry, she whispered, and she saw understanding flicker across his face. He thought she was choosing duty. Choosing to let him die for the greater good. Instead, Luna placed both hands over his heart and opened herself completely to the lunar power flowing through her veins. Luna, no, Kieran tried to protest, but his voice was barely a whisper. Together, she said fiercely. We face this together, or not at all. Power erupted from her core like a silver star going nova. But instead of the raw, untrained force she'd wielded before, this magic moved with purpose and precision. She reached deep into the mysteries of her bloodline, calling upon knowledge that had been sleeping in her DNA for generations. Heal him, she commanded the moon's power. Bind us. Make us one. The ancient magic responded with eager joy, as if it had been waiting centuries for this moment. Silver fire poured from Luna's hands into Kieran's chest, seeking out the curse that was killing him and burning it away with lunar flame. But more than that, much more, the power began weaving connections between them, soul to soul, heart to heart, until Luna could no longer tell where she ended and Kieran began. The mate bond, which had been a whisper of possibility, became a roar of absolute certainty. Their life forces merged, their strengths combined, their very essence becoming two halves of a greater whole. Kieran's eyes widened as his heart began beating strong and steady once more. But Luna could see in his expression that he understood the cost. By saving him, she had bound them together so completely that they would live and die as one. If either of them fell, both would perish. "You beautiful, foolish, impossible woman," he breathed, his hand finding her face. "Do you know what you've done?" "Made sure I never have to live without you," Luna replied, and felt his love wash over her through their new bond like warm honey. Marcus's laughter shattered the moment. How deliciously romantic. And how utterly pointless. "All you've done is given me 2 prizes instead of 1. Luna helped Kieran to his feet, marveling at the way their movements synchronized perfectly, as if they'd been fighting together for years instead of minutes. She could feel his strength flowing into her, while her power amplified his natural abilities beyond anything he'd possessed before. "Actually," Luna said, turning to face Marcus with newfound confidence, "I've just evened the odds." The corrupted enforcers moved to attack, but Luna and Kieran met them as one entity. Where Kieran's claws struck, Luna's power followed, silver fire that purified the blood magic corrupting their enemies. Where Luna channeled lunar energy, Kieran shaped it into weapons of living light that cut through their foes like butter. They moved in perfect harmony, a dance of death and starlight that left a trail of cleansed ash in their wake. Within minutes, half of Marcus's remaining army was gone. Impressive, Marcus admitted, though his amber eyes had taken on a distinctly irritated gleam. But ultimately futile. "You're still untrained, still learning your abilities on the fly. I've had centuries to perfect my craft." He raised his hands and spoke words in the same ancient language he'd used before, but this time Luna understood them. The knowledge flowed through her lunar heritage. He was calling upon the stolen life force of his victims, weaving their deaths into a spell of absolute dominion. Dark power erupted from Marcus like a tide of shadow and corruption. It washed over the clearing with malevolent hunger, seeking to claim everything it touched. Trees withered, grass blackened, and the very air became thick with the stench of decay. Luna raised her own power to meet it, silver light clashing with Marcus's darkness in the space between them. But even with Kieran's strength flowing through their bond, she could feel herself being overwhelmed. Marcus had decades of stolen power at his disposal, while she was still learning to control abilities she'd only discovered days ago. "You cannot win," Marcus said conversationally as his darkness pressed closer. "I am beyond your reach now, beyond anyone's reach. When I complete the Dominion ritual with your power, I will reshape this world into something better. Stronger. A place where the worthy rule and the weak serve." "A place where you rule," Luna corrected, pouring everything she had into maintaining her barrier of light. "Of course. Who else has the vision to guide our species into the future? The old ways are dead, Luna. Honor, tradition, the natural order, all of it obsolete. Power is the only truth that matters." As he spoke, Luna became aware of something else. The darkness flowing from Marcus wasn't just corrupt, it was hungry. Ravenous. And underneath its surface, she could sense something that made her blood run cold. Cracks. Fractures in the very fabric of reality itself. "Kieran," she whispered through their bond. "He's not just trying to become Supreme Alpha. He's trying to break something. The barriers between the human and supernatural worlds," Kieran finished grimly. "I can feel it too. If those barriers fall." Luna didn't need him to complete the thought. For centuries, powerful magic had kept the supernatural world hidden from human awareness. If those protections failed, chaos would follow. Governments would mobilize armies against werewolf packs. Scientists would hunt moon witches for experimentation. The delicate balance that allowed both worlds to coexist would shatter, and the war that followed would consume everything. "That's his real plan," Luna breathed. "Supremacy over the supernatural world isn't enough. He wants to rule everything." Marcus's smile was razor-sharp. "Finally, you begin to understand. Imagine it, Luna, a world where werewolves don't hide in the shadows, where we take our rightful place as the dominant species. No more pretending to be human, no more bowing to inferior beings who outnumber us through nothing more than reproductive enthusiasm. And you expect to rule this new world? Who else? I'll be the most powerful being on the planet. Immortal, unstoppable, with the ability to command every supernatural creature in existence. His eyes glowed with fanatic fervor. It will be glorious. Luna felt sick. It will be genocide. Humans will never submit willingly. You'll have to kill billions of them to maintain control. A necessary sacrifice for the greater good, Marcus replied without a trace of remorse. Evolution is never painless. The casual dismissal of mass murder crystallized something in Luna's mind. This wasn't about power or dominion or even supremacy. This was about a man so twisted by his own ambitions that he'd convinced himself genocide was evolution. She couldn't let that stand. But as Marcus's darkness pressed closer to her failing barrier, Luna realized she was out of options. Her power was nearly exhausted, Kieran was strong but still recovering from his injuries, and Elena's pack was scattered or dead. Even if she could somehow defeat Marcus here and now, the damage to the barriers between worlds might already be irreversible. Unless... Luna looked up at the night sky and felt her heart sink. The moon was dark, hidden behind clouds and celestial mechanics. During the day, she could channel solar-reflected lunar energy, but on a moonless night like this, her power was at its weakest. Or was it? Deep in her newly awakened memories, Luna found fragments of knowledge passed down through her bloodline. The moon was always there, even when hidden. Its power didn't disappear during the dark phase, it simply changed, became subtler, more mysterious. Where the full moon's energy was blazing and obvious, the new moon's power was patient and profound. The moon in darkness is not powerless, whispered the voice of her ancestors. It is gathering strength for rebirth. Luna closed her eyes and reached out with senses she hadn't known she possessed. Past the clouds, past the atmosphere, past the illusion of absence, she found it, the moon in its dark phase, pregnant with potential, heavy with the promise of cycles eternal. Luna? Kieran's voice was tight with concern as her silver barrier flickered and dimmed. Trust me, she whispered, and let her defenses fall completely. Marcus's darkness rushed forward like a tsunami, but instead of fighting it, Luna embraced it. She let the corruption wash over her, through her, around her, and in doing so, she felt its true nature. This wasn't pure evil, as she'd thought. It was twisted, yes, but at its core it was still magical energy. Life force stolen from Marcus's victims, perverted and reshaped but fundamentally unchanged. And if it was still magical energy at heart, then it could be cleansed. Luna reached out to the dark moon hanging invisible overhead and spoke a single word in the ancient language of her people, purify. What happened next defied every law of magic Luna had ever heard of. Instead of channeling the moon's power down to earth, she reversed the flow. She took Marcus's corrupted energy and sent it upward, offering it to the lunar darkness like a sacrifice on an altar of stars. The dark moon accepted the offering with terrible joy. Power exploded downward in return, but this wasn't the silver fire Luna had wielded before. This was something deeper, older, more fundamental than mere lunar energy. This was the power of cycles, death and rebirth, ending and beginning, the eternal dance of creation and destruction that kept the universe spinning. Marcus's stolen life force was stripped away in an instant, the darkness he'd wielded for decades purified and returned to the natural order. He staggered, his amber eyes wide with shock as centuries of accumulated power simply vanished. Impossible, he gasped. That magic is forbidden, lost, forgotten. Not forgotten, Luna said, and her voice carried harmonics of lunar power that made the very air ring like a bell. Just sleeping. Waiting for someone worthy to wake it up. She gestured, and the purified energy that had once been Marcus's weapon became hers to command. But instead of using it to attack, she sent it flowing outward through the forest, healing the corruption Marcus had spread, restoring the natural balance that his presence had disrupted. The barriers between worlds, which had been cracking under the pressure of his dark magic, solidified and strengthened. The hidden boundary that kept humanity safe from supernatural warfare was restored, more robust than it had been in centuries. Marcus snarled and lunged for the lunar crown, still clutched in Elena's protective arms. Without his stolen power, he was just a werewolf, stronger and faster than human, yes, but no match for a moon witch in her full power. Luna caught him in mid-leap with invisible hands of lunar force, lifting him into the air like a puppet on strings. "It's over, Marcus," she said quietly. "You've lost." "Have I?" Marcus's lips curved in a smile that made Luna's blood freeze. "Tell me, little witch, what do you think happens to a mind that's been sustained by blood magic for decades? What happens when that magic is suddenly stripped away?" Luna felt it then, through her enhanced senses, the sound of Marcus's sanity snapping like an overstretched cable. The man who had plotted and schemed and murdered his way toward godhood was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous, a madman with nothing left to lose. Marcus began to laugh, high and wild and utterly without reason. "If I can't rule the world, I'll make sure no one can. There are other ways to break the barriers, other rituals that don't require stolen power." He bit down hard on something hidden in his mouth, a suicide pill, Luna realized, but not one meant to kill him quickly. This was something else, something that made his amber eyes begin to glow with unnatural light. "A berserker draft," Kieran breathed. "He's making himself into a living bomb." Luna understood instantly. The potion would flood Marcus's system with his own life force, turning him into a weapon of pure destruction. When it reached critical mass, he would explode with enough force to level everything within a mile radius. The magical fallout would tear holes in reality itself, accomplishing in death what he'd failed to achieve in life. She had perhaps 30 seconds before the transformation was complete. Without hesitation, Luna wrapped Marcus in cocoon of lunar force and launched him skyward, sending him rocketing toward the clouds at impossible speed. If he was going to explode, he would do it somewhere that couldn't hurt anyone else. But even as his glowing form disappeared into the night sky, Luna felt the barriers between worlds shudder. The berserker explosion, when it came, would still cause damage. Still weaken the protections that kept humanity safe. Unless she reinforced them. Luna reached out through her bond with Kieran, drawing on his strength as she opened herself completely to the Dark Moon's power. Together, they poured everything they had into the ancient barriers, weaving new protections to replace the ones Marcus's madness had damaged. The explosion came as a brief new star in the heavens, visible for just a moment before it faded to nothing. The shockwave that followed was absorbed by Luna's reinforced barriers, dissipated harmlessly into the spaces between worlds. Marcus Thorne, would-be Supreme Alpha and architect of genocide, was gone. Luna collapsed to her knees, her power finally exhausted. But she could feel through her bond with Kieran that they had succeeded. The barriers held. The world was safe. "It's over," she whispered, and felt Kieran's arms wrap around her from behind. "No," he said softly, his lips brushing her ear. "It's just beginning." 3 months later. The coronation ceremony took place in the restored ceremonial grounds where Luna had first awakened to her true power. Representatives from every major pack in North America had come to witness something unprecedented in werewolf history, the crowning of the first lunar alpha in over 3 centuries. Luna stood in the center of the ancient circle, wearing robes of midnight blue that seemed to capture starlight in their folds. The lunar crown rested on her brow, not the ornate golden circlet she'd expected, but a simple band of silver that pulsed with inner radiance. It felt right against her skin, as if it had been made for her specifically. Beside her, Kieran wore the traditional garb of a pack alpha, but with one significant difference. The silver torque around his neck marked him not as her subordinate, but as her equal, the first alpha consort in recorded werewolf history. "You know they're all still staring," Kieran murmured as Elder Catherine of the Northern Packs began the ancient rites of recognition. "Let them stare," Luna replied softly. "They'll get used to it." The ceremony proceeded with solemn dignity as pack after pack formally acknowledged Luna's authority. Not as Supreme Alpha, she had refused that title, insisting that the packs should remain autonomous, but as the Lunar Alpha, guardian of the ancient ways and protector of the supernatural world's secrets. When the last pack had offered their recognition, Luna stepped forward to address the assembled alphas. 3 months ago, we faced a threat that could have destroyed everything we've built, she began, her voice carrying clearly across the gathering. One man's ambition nearly shattered the barriers that keep our world safe. But we survived because we remembered what we truly are, not conquerors or supreme beings, but guardians. Protectors. The shield that stands between the human world and the darkness that would devour it. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The old ways of competition and conquest are dead, Luna continued. In their place, we will build something new. A confederation of packs united not by dominion, but by purpose. Together, we will face whatever challenges the future brings. As the ceremony concluded and the packs began to disperse, Luna felt a familiar presence at the edge of her awareness. She turned to see a figure watching from the tree-line, tall, elegant, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that held the wisdom of millennia. Kiran, she whispered, nudging her mate. Do you see? But when she looked again, the figure was gone. What is it? Kiran asked, his hand finding hers automatically. Nothing, Luna said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. Probably just shadows. But as they walked back toward their new territory, the restored lands of the Shadow Creek Pack, now expanded to accommodate refugees from Marcus's reign of terror, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that they were being observed. Not by enemies, but by something far older and more mysterious. The vampires have been quiet since Marcus's death, Kiran said as they reached their home, a modest cabin built where the old pack house had once stood. Too quiet. And the Fae courts have been sending envoys, Luna added. Asking questions about the new power structure. They settled onto the porch swing Kiran had built by hand, watching the sun set over their domain. In the distance, they could see the lights of the pack village where their people lived in peace for the first time in years. Think they see us as a threat? Kiran asked. Luna considered the question seriously. The supernatural world was a delicate ecosystem of competing factions, werewolves, vampires, fae, witches, and dozens of other species all vying for territory and influence. The sudden appearance of a lunar alpha, wielding powers not seen in centuries, had undoubtedly upset the balance. I think they see us as something new, she said finally. Something they need to understand before they decide whether we're friend or foe. Kiran's arm tightened around her. Let them come. We'll face whatever challenges arise the same way we faced Marcus. Together, Luna agreed, leaning into his warmth. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, Luna felt the moon's presence like a gentle benediction. The power that had awakened in her 3 months ago had settled into something sustainable, no longer the wild torrent of that first night but a steady river of strength that flowed through every aspect of her life. She was no longer the dutiful pack princess who had been prepared to marry for duty. Nor was she the frightened girl who had discovered her mate was supposed to be her enemy. She was Luna Blackwood, Lunar Alpha, Moon Witch, and Guardian of the Ancient Ways. And she was exactly where she belonged. Do you ever regret it? Kiran asked quietly. Giving up the safe, simple life you were supposed to have? Luna thought of her father, who had spent weeks begging her forgiveness before finally accepting her new role with grudging pride. She thought of her mother, who had been revealed as a moon witch herself, a weaker one, but still carrying the bloodline that had made Luna's power possible. She thought of Sarah, whose death had been the catalyst for everything that followed. Most of all, she thought of the choice she'd made in this very clearing, to save the man she loved rather than play it safe. Never, she said firmly. This is who I was always meant to be. Above them, the full moon emerged from behind a cloud, bathing them in silver light. And in that light, Luna saw glimpses of the future, challenges to come, enemies yet to be faced, and adventures that would test the bonds between them. But also joy. Love. The deep satisfaction of a life lived with purpose and meaning. The Moon Witch and her alpha consort sat together in comfortable silence, watching over their pack and their world, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. After all, they had chosen love over safety once before. They would do it again, as many times as necessary. Together. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.